Thinks he's about to be killed, and what good did he do? Well, we know. 1 Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 3 and 4, he says that no man should be moved by these afflictions, for yourselves know that we are appointed thereunto. We are appointed to afflictions. That's what he means by that. For verily, when we were with you, we told you before that we should suffer tribulation, even as it came to pass, and you know. So he says, first of all, he says, don't be moved by my suffering, because he's suffering a lot, or yours. He says, we told you this was going to happen. This is part of it. We told you that I was appointed to suffer, and so are you. And that's what he says. That's kind of different than today's churches that tell you that we're appointed to get rich, right, and have fun. That's not what Paul taught. All right, let's go back to his sufferings. Let's go to Acts chapter 9. Acts chapter 9, verses 15 and 16, when the Lord is telling Ananias what Paul has been appointed for. Acts 9, verses 15 and 16. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way. And he's talking to Ananias, but he's talking about Paul. So he says, For he is a chosen vessel unto me. In other words, this is somebody I chose, God is saying, because this was the guy that was persecuting the Christians. And Ananias was a little worried about him having some position with the Lord. And the Lord says, you go your way. He's a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. For I will show him, and that him is Paul, how great things he must suffer for my name's sake.
Amen.
Right?
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And we all get to suffer. You know, we just whine a lot, and it's a lot less suffering. All right, let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 11. Were we whining about our suffering, Ron, after tennis Friday?
Yeah, we kind of start before and after.
2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 24 to 28, where Paul is describing some of his suffering. He says, Of the Jews 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one. Beatings 5 times, 39 stripes. Thrice was I beaten with rods. Once was I stoned. Thrice I suffered shipwreck. A night and a day I have been in the deep. In journeyings often, in perils of waters, in perils of robbers, in perils by my own countrymen, in perils by the heathen, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness. You couldn't find a safe place. In perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren. In weariness and painfulness, in watchings often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and nakedness. You know what? That fastings often doesn't sound like he necessarily did them all on purpose, does it? And besides those things that are without, that were happening to his body, he says, that which cometh upon me daily, the care of all the churches. He's concerned about all the churches. So he suffered. He didn't get to be the Pope. Or a doctor of divinity, or a master theologian, or an ordained minister. He was ordained to suffer, right? Ordained to suffer. Now, what would impress most people about a church? If you think about it today, about a church today.
Size.
Pardon?
Size.
Size. That's a good one. You know, boy, the bigger the better, right? And if you want to look for size or beauty, you know, the beautifulness of it. Look for the mainline churches. Many of them have huge and beautiful type buildings, or the new mega churches. Some of them, you know, have jumped up, the tons of people going, and they create some amazing buildings. Some people are impressed by longevity. How old is the church? There's at least one of those denominations, the Orthodox or maybe the Catholics, have been in business for 2,000 years. And they brag about their longevity, but that's nothing compared to the Jews. They've been in business for 3,500 years, so they got the real longevity. Some people are impressed by that. Then a lot of people are impressed by something that all churches are doing now, or most churches, which are trying to please people so they can fill all the pews. And they do it with a great band, lots of activities, especially for the children, social events, all those kind of things. That's what people are impressed by in churches today. I don't think we qualify on any of them, do we? How about a preacher? What would impress you about a preacher? Or impress people today about a preacher? You know, if he's
Eloquent speech.
Eloquent speech. Yeah, he can, that's right. Wow.
Yeah, nice big car.
I just plugged big time there. Can't sing. Good looking. How about degrees at the end of his name? You know, leadership. A man to look up to. You know, it's something that somebody told me a long time ago. It says if you go in and you hear a preacher speaking and you're impressed by him, you're in the wrong place. But if you hear a preacher speaking and you're impressed by Jesus Christ, then you're in the right place. You know? So Paul was not ordained by a religious organization. He wasn't good looking. He didn't speak well. He wrote well, but he didn't speak well. He didn't have a church. He didn't have any degrees. He wasn't part of a movement that supported him. He didn't have any recommendations. Instead, he's being persecuted and cast out everywhere he goes. Not very impressive, is it? Can you see him standing in one of today's mega churches next to the mighty preacher, full of people that want to be entertained and not to be made to feel uncomfortable because they just want some watered down doctrine in small bites that are easy on the ears so they can just go on living their lives as it pleases them and not really be too concerned with what pleases God. Paul knew what his opposition was, and he had that opposition. But he also knew the power of God in a believer. And you know, it's funny, but when you've got that power in you, you may say, well, I've never been tested. Maybe not.